Hello everybody, welcome to First Attack here on the Chensor Dynasty at twitch.tv/jchensor. I am your host, jchensor, aka James Chen, and you guys are here to learn all about Granblue Fantasy Versus. Now, I know you guys want to get into this right away, so let's just jump into this as quickly as we can. Before we get started, one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit is how this game plays, how it feels. A lot of people always ask me the question, does it feel like Street Fighter? Does it feel like, Guilty Gear? You're going to want to consider this game more on the Street Fighter vein. You play a lot of games like Guilty Gear or Blaze Blue or Dragon Ball. There's a lot of instant air dashes, a lot of crazy movements, a lot of strange mechanics all over the place, and it's kind of complicated, but Granblue Fantasy Versus very much a more basic fighting game similar to Street Fighter. You're going to see a lot more precise movements and careful single hits. So before we begin with a lot of the system mechanics here, let's just start by looking at the game screen over here first. A lot of the things that you're seeing on the screen here have been placed onto the screen by training mode options. I'm in training mode. This is an area of the game you should get yourself familiar with very early on, but if I actually hide everything, for example, here, so that you don't see it, this is what the game screen will normally look like to you. I have Gran and I have Katalina down here. Of course, these are the two main protagonists of the game, and I'm going to use them for all the examples because I think most of you guys who are coming from the Granblue mobile world are going to be familiar with these characters, and Gran is also, and Katalina actually, both characters are very good characters to start with. In fact, if you're absolutely brand new to fighting games and you want to learn them and want to play Granblue Fantasy Versus, I would start with Gran or Katalina right away because these are great characters to learn. So if you look at the screen, right under me is an infinite symbol because I'm in training mode, but normally during a match you'll see that it's the timer countdown. If the timer runs all the way down to 0, the round ends, and whoever has more health left in their energy bar is the winner of that round. You don't see this here in training mode right now, but there are little diamonds that you'll see next to the character portraits in the top corners, and that will indicate how many rounds you've won. And if you win 2 rounds, by default it's a 2 out of 3 match, and if you win 2 rounds, you win the game. So whether you win by KOing your opponent or by winning by timeout, you will get that round. And to KO an opponent, you just basically have to drain all their life. So if I set the opponent here to not recover any life here, you'll see as they get hit, you'll see a big red chunk appear in Katalina's energy bar over there on the right side. And that means that's how much life she lost. And if I keep hitting the opponent and keep doing this all the way to the point where they run out of health, I win the round. And that's a KO, and I can take the round. Now there's a couple of other things on your screen right there. I don't want to get into them right now, but they will be covered in later sections. There's the small blue bar that you see the 100% next to. That is known as your super meter, or your skybound meter, if you want to call it that. Like I said, I'll go into more details about what that is in the skybound arts section. And then there are the 4 boxes next to the character portrait. You can see the 4 boxes right above the characters' names. You see Gran, and there's the 4 colored boxes. Same thing with Katalina on her side. Again, those are things that I will go into a lot more detail later on. Once we get into the skills section, once we start talking about special moves. You guys want to learn all about the mechanics in this game, so let's start talking about that right away. Look, first thing you want to learn in a fighting game, anytime, is always going to be movement. It's always going to be movement. So what are the movement options in Granblue Fantasy Versus? Well, just like almost every fighting game, and again, this applies to both the control pad here and the joystick. I use a joystick because that's what I'm accustomed to. You can move forward by holding forward on the controller, or back on by holding back on the controller. And again, one of the nice features of this game is there's the virtual controller plus buttons that you see at the bottom left of the screen, so you can always see what direction I'm hitting on the controller, whether it be down or up. And again, if you guys are new to the anime fighting game scene, if you're coming from, for example, the Granblue Fantasy mobile world, one of the things that you'll want to learn right away is called Numpad Notation, and you'll see this a lot. Basically, if you look at the numbers on your number pad on your keyboard, and you look at that, all those numbers can represent all of the 9 different directions I can move on a controller. So in other words, 1 represents down and back, 2 represents down, 3 represents down and forward, 4 represents back, 5 represents not touching anything at all, 6 is forward, 7 is up back, 8 is straight up, and 9 is up forward. So you're going to see a lot of numpad notation. So if you hear me say things like 2H, or you know, if I accidentally use numpad notation, that's what it means. If I say 66A, that means you're double tapping forward to run, and then hitting the A button or L attack, for example. 2H would mean down and heavy for crouching heavy attacks. So again, if you hold back, or 4, as you would say in numpad notation, you can walk backwards. Holding 6 or forward makes you walk forward. Now, in almost all fighting games, there's 2 stances. There's standing and crouching. In the crouch, obviously you just hit down on the controller. This is common in so many different video games that you play. You know, just hold down to crouch. And you can also hold down back and down forward on the controller. That also keeps you crouching. Later on, we'll learn a lot more about defensive options, but holding back and down back are going to be important for defensive options. Now, again, you can also jump, and to do that, no surprise, you hit the up direction. So if I hit straight up, my character will jump straight up. If I hit up forward, my character will jump up forward. And if I hit up back, my character will jump backward. Very common standard fare right there. It makes a lot of sense. So you're just moving the character in the direction you're moving the joystick. Those are the basic movement options here. As I hinted at a little bit earlier in the numpad section, you can also dash. This is again a very common mechanic in a lot of fighting games. If I double tap forward and keep holding forward on the controller, you see that makes Gran start running all the way forward. If I double tap back on the controller very quickly, my character backdashes. The backdash is going to be a little bit slower than running forward, but the dash forward is a great way to close distance on your opponent. And these are the very basic main movement options you're looking at. And again, these are very common in almost all fighting games. You'll see these a lot in different fighting games. Now, let's move on to the attack buttons. So this is mainly a 6-button fighting game. But we're going to start by talking about 3 buttons first. And that is going to be light, L, on the default configuration on a PlayStation pad. This is square. There's medium, also known as B, which is triangle on the PlayStation pad. And then there's heavy, which is can also be called C, which is circle on the PlayStation pad. So you can call it square, triangle, circle, you can call it light, medium, heavy, or you can call it ABC. A lot of different nomenclatures around there. I'll probably accidentally swap between them from time to time, but understand that there's a lot of different ways to represent these buttons. But light, medium, and heavy is the way that I'm going to try to explain them a lot. So it works the way that most fighting games that you're used to are, but if you aren't used to fighting games, light attacks are usually very quick. They're very, very quick attacks, but they don't have a lot of range. Same thing with medium attacks. However, medium attacks will reach a little further away, as you can see here, but they're going to be a little bit slower. You can see the light finishes. Listen to the rhythm of the button. I can press pretty fast. Medium, I have to hit a little bit slower to do it as quickly as possible. Heavy will have the most range out of all the buttons most of the time. Not necessarily for Gran. Gran's heavy attack is about the same range as his medium, but usually heavy attacks will have much longer ranges than the medium. But they're also slower, but they do the most damage. Light attacks, if you notice, I punch her twice and she doesn't lose much health. With mediums, if I hit her twice, she loses a lot more. With heavy, if I hit her twice, she loses a lot. So again, lights, fast, short range, less damage. Mediums, the middle of everything. You can consider this the Mario of everything. And heavy button is going to be the Bowser of everything. Slower, more damage, and better range, essentially. I guess you can consider light the Princess Peach. You know, they're faster and they're quicker. So that's generally how you want to see the buttons. Now again, as I mentioned, there's two stances in fighting games. There's standing and there's crouching. You'll notice that you'll have a completely different set of buttons when you are crouching. If I'm crouching, my light looks like this, but if I'm standing, my light looks like this. Same thing for medium, standing, crouching. Here's heavy when I'm standing and heavy when I'm crouching. And keep in mind that almost everybody's crouching heavy attack is going to be an attack that hits in an upward direction, because this is really good to be used against opponents who are jumping at you. It is known as an anti-air. So this is a common use for this move. But this is generally how it works. These are your main attacks. I think there's one unique case with Metera that she has a different attack if I hold down back as opposed to another direction. But for the most part, these are the 6 main attacks for almost every character. Light, medium, heavy while standing, light, medium, and heavy while crouching. Other fighting games have special, they have unique attacks that you can access by holding forward and hitting a button, or hitting back and hitting a button. That doesn't really exist in Granblue Fantasy Versus. It's just going to be those 6 basic attacks. Now, while jumping, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to have 3 different attacks. Light, no matter which direction you're jumping. Medium, no matter which direction you're jumping. And heavy, no matter which direction you're jumping. So again, same kind of thing. Light's going to be fast and usually last for most of your jump. So you can hit it on the way up and it'll still hit. But medium, if you hit it, you'll see that it finishes, so you have to time this a little bit more to hit people. And then heavy, gonna do the most damage, and gonna also be very fast, see? So if you hit it too early, you're gonna miss. So make sure you time it properly. And again, damage is gonna be the same thing. Light's not gonna do much damage, medium's gonna do medium damage, and heavy's gonna do more damage, the most damage out of all of them. So those are the 3 basic attack buttons that you're going to want to learn and understand. There's a 4th button here called the unique button. And this one's a little bit trickier because every character, she's formidable. That's why it's called the unique button, has a different trait to them. They have a different kind of built-in system to them. So for Gran, it happens to be, you know, just a slash here like this, which is really nice. But for some other characters, it's going to make you jump, or it's going to make you power up another move that you have. The U button, the unique button, will do something unique for every character that you have. However, when you crouch and hit U, that actually accesses a special universal attack for every character. Every character will have a crouching U that hits low. Now, in the defense section, we'll get into a little bit what I mean by moves that hit low, but just understand that this is a move that will always knock your opponent down when you hit them with it, and it will always be a move that you have to defend while crouching as opposed to standing up. Everybody's crouching U attack will have different properties. It'll look different ranges. One character hits twice instead of once, for example. But it's universal that everybody's crouching U will do a low attack that hits your legs and knocks the opponent down. Now, when it comes to jumping, again, it's going to be different for every character. Gran just looks like it's another jump attack. But some other characters, it'll be a movement option. For Lancelot, it allows him to dash to the floor. You'll have characters like Fairy where the jumping U attack actually will do multiple things depending on which way you're holding the controller. There's actually 5 different unique actions she can perform while in the air by holding different directions on the controller. So you want to consider the unique button almost like an extra special move for the character. And so those are your 4 main buttons. Again, on a standard controller, you're going to set them up as you see down on your screen over there. LMH U, which corresponds to square, triangle, circle, X. Once this comes out on Steam, you're going to be able to match it to whatever pad that you are using on your PC. On joystick, you're going to assign the buttons anywhere you go. And remember, you can do button configuration right here. With this button configuration option here, you can assign different buttons to the different attacks. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you can assign it that way. But those are basically the basic options here, the basic movement options and the basic attack options that exist in Granblue Fantasy Versus.